Assalamualaikum everybody, good morning. My name is Satria and I'm a student from Eden Boarding School, class 10, major at software engineers. And for today's videos, I want to talk about what is JavaScript language and why is it very important. Well, the language JavaScript is a programming language usually primarily by web browser to create a dynamic and interactive experience for the user. Most of the functions of the language and applications that make the internet indispensable to modern life are coded in some form of JavaScript. So, the the earliest incarnations of JavaScript were developed in the late 90s for Netscape Navigator, like a navigator web browser. At that time, web pages were static and offering little user interactions like beyond clicking and loading new page. So, JavaScript language is like more making it more interactive for the user, and like for the first time, JavaScript, when I learned JavaScript, is that it's enabled animations and adaptive contents and from validations on the page. I still remember the animations that I first created using the language JavaScript. That is, I create a X button that is very interactive and have animations on it. So when user can cancel the and leave the page, the X button have a little bit of animations that shine and it's very interactive. For many years, JavaScript only functioned on a limited number of browsers, like Microsoft Internet Explorer, and the larger browser base did not support JavaScript. Yeah, it's only Internet Explorer in the 90s. But later, instead, Microsoft created its own private client-side script called JavaScript. In the early days of web development, programmers who wished to create dynamic websites were often forced to choose one browser family over the other. This was less than the ideal because it's made the internet less universally accessible. JavaScript does not become standardized and widely adopted until 1999. For even after standardizing, browser compatibility remained an issue for over a decade. However, does JavaScript work? JavaScript is known as a client-side script. Most web applications, such as search engine, work because of interactions between the user device. Or in a remote server, the software on the remote server sends an information to the client, and the software on the client reads the informations and renders a web page on screen. And there's a four reason why JavaScript is so popular. There are good reason. JavaScript is currently among the top programming language, and for beginners too, JavaScript is very popular. When I learned about programming language after HTML and CSS, the third language that I learned is JavaScript in programming. JavaScript is like a character to beginner, intermediate, and advanced developers. JavaScript does need do not need any environment setup. Just open a browser like a Chrome and navigate it to developer tools and start coding. It's very easy to use and it's very easy to start coding and learning the language. Like writing a hello world program is as simple as like console.log and hello world. JavaScript is very flexible. It's very suited for intermediate developers. The language just helps getting done by letting the developers focus on solving the problems and can use mix on plugging their own snippets to get an application working. While JavaScript is relatively easy to get started with, it's not straightforward to master. It's kind of hard to master it, really. If you want to get an advanced level of JavaScript language and focus your language in JavaScript, there are some concepts you need to know. JavaScript is like a multi-paradigm nature, and applying a design pattern in JavaScript, like a model view and design patterns, have been among the most popular and have led to the development of several modern frameworks. JavaScript is an omni-platform. JavaScript can run everywhere, including like devices like mobiles, tablets, laptops, on the client side as well as the server side. This ability to run everywhere make JavaScript a universal language among programmers. Open Standard Community is the standardization version of JavaScript as well as an open standard language. Companies can use to create JavaScript implementations according to some Wikipedia I search, and it's a program that executes source code in a version of the language standard. For example, JavaScript, the most popular engines are open source projects. Modern framework. This is what makes JavaScript very popular. Modern frameworks like React, Angular, and Vue.js has been established or being optimized for better performance. Most frameworks are well developer friendly with good community support, and the community, because of the popularity of JavaScript, and it's become the third for beginner language to learn for programmers, newcomers. The community is very big for JavaScript, so you can consult uh, 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 people who master JavaScript more than you, and you can consult other developers that have more intermediate of learning of using JavaScript language. Well, I guess that is all that I want to say about JavaScript. Thank you for coming by and seeing my videos. Goodbye.